I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is on vacation.
Whoa.
Except this time, it's winter break. Andrew Kuo, no days off.
Never winter break, man. Yo, I'm feeling lousy today. I barely got sleep last night.
Sounds like someone needs a vacation.
Sounds like someone should not watch Uncut Gems and have weird, odd nightmares about it.
I drank too much coffee before seeing Uncut Gems and was very jittery during the whole
That does not sound
the whole
fun.
fiasco. It was the wrong beverage to consume prior to a harrowing, grimy New York City crime fest.
Opus. What is the right drink to drink during that kind of movie?
Warm milk.
Chamomile tea.
Specifically warm oat milk from Oatly.
Nice.
Oatly. The oat milk of Cookies Hoops.
Is Oatly still hot? Are places still running out of Oatly?
I think the Oatly shortage may have been a scam.
Ooh, like the White Claw shortage?
Right.
Although it was hard to get for a second, right?
But was it an artificial shortage?
True.
I couldn't tell you. But I do think there has been an increased availability of Oatly. I've noticed this, specifically near where I live. There were a few spots where you could find it, and now it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about this like in terms of fashion, because we live in New York City, and I may have lived here too long, that things are in and out of fashion so quickly that it's just always around. So White Claw was hard to get for an hour before I saw it at every vape shop on my block. And did they stock up before or after they became hard to get? I can't tell. But like the unavailability and the availability happened so quick that we don't even have to talk about it.
The cyclic nature of trends is interesting in that it seems to be cycling at a faster rate than ever before.
Yeah. I mean, do you think an article of clothing is ever out of fashion? Can you name one thing? I know we live in New York and it's a bubble and we're coastal elites. We're damn coastal elites. But do you see anybody walking into a party wearing a wrong thing ever?
It's a good point. I would say there are certain specific looks, maybe more with women, but having like the legs, the chopped off in your jeans and like a harsh fray or looking like they were scissored off now looks lame.
I don't know. I saw some guy with that look on the subway yesterday and I was like, looks fine to me. I thought about that though.
But still, being higher above your ankles is cool. But now, if
there's
you're
a pushback.
fashion forward, there's a pushback where it's like boot cut, kind of cool.
No, that's over already. See, I can't tell. That was in the spring.
Yes, agreed. But I'm saying there is a complete like rapidity to how this works and doesn't work that you can kind of get away with anything in a way.
I agree. Like, okay, so if I rolled into your house wearing a saggy beanie, like a V-cut American Apparel style gray shirt and tight black jeans, what would you say?
Yeah, that would be a look that I would associate with someone...
A Nets fan.
A Nets fan.
Yep.
Someone who looks vaguely Israeli, who sits in like in the 100s at Barclays. But you'd also want to have some nice sweatpants, specifically joggers, that would go with that.
Yeah.
And that would be a very Barclays look.
Yeah, Yeezys for sure, right? You have to be wearing Yeezys.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, even so, if
you would say that person is not stylish,
but acceptable still.
I don't know. It's hard to say on that one.
If you're young, does everything work? As long as you're young and or skinny, whatever our social values, our incorrect social values value. If you're young, everything's acceptable.
I don't know about that.
I don't either, but I'm going with it.
Because there's of course sort of irony, double irony, all these layers of what's your reference point. But I still think if you dress like a Los Angeles photographer who's on Raya, there is a good chance that you may be viewed as dressing in the way of like a lame or someone who's trying too hard. But that's also because they don't know the right reference points to be mimicking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they think they look a certain way or they're comfortable with that. It's a tricky situation.
I mean, I ask because I find myself in a situation where I see everything on everyone look kind of good. I'm like, oh, that's a cool look. Oh, that's a cool look. I'm like, wait, I'm doing that thing where it's just like I'm not being critical about anything. I'm just enjoying it. And there's a joy to that, but also, am I the lame? Ben, am I the baddie?
You're not the lamey. Also, you're self-segregating though, because you're not in Murray Hill at
100%.
a sports bar, and there's guys in billowy pink dress shirts, and you're not at like a cornball club where people are wearing fedoras, and I guess people will still do that. But I'm not like I know what you mean. But you're at a skater bar, or you're
on the
at
J
a
train,
cool bar, or you're in Bed-Stuy. Like you're not being subjected to the people who would be the most flagrant violators of these rules that you are now claiming do not exist.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like I realize that we have a lot of options in New York, but it's kind of streamlined, so it's hard to make a mistake in these neighborhoods when you buy clothes, even if it's like sweatpants and Yeezys. I'm like, that's fine. Or even like old guy shoes or Mephistos. Like, it's all good, man. I don't know. But I know I'm wrong. I'm just saying.
I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm saying that your plan to defund the fashion police is going to lead to anarchy.
Well, my style icon is like Asian great-great-grandparents in the park at 7 a.m. So I'm going with that.
They're fly as shit.
Yeah, they look amazing, man. And I'm not trying to even be like sarcastic or ironic. I see them and I'm like, yo, that's an amazing extra large sweatshirt and bootleg Supreme hat.
What if we put 500 more fashion police in the subways?
On the Utah Jazz.
Flood the subways with fashion police.
Yeah. Well, I also bring this up.
What lines would you focus the fashion police on the subway?
What lines would I?
The L train is safe.
It's yeah. Yes.
Relatively safe.
What about like the 1-2?
The 1-2. The F could use some help, I think.
You think so? But it services South Brooklyn.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Wow, dude. The Nets are hearing your shade.
The F train does have a nice route, though. Shout out to the F train's nice route.
I love the F train, man. It's quick. It gets you right down to Barclays Center, so you can grab those bottomless mimosas, and cop your Eric Hayes jersey.
But you got downtown Brooklyn. You have Dumbo. You have Chinatown. You have the Lower East Side. You have Soho-ish.
You have Sunset Park.
Nets practice facility.
Yeah.
Anyway, the F train, really good line for going to places that you like to go.
Yeah. I mean, I take the JM every day, and it's awesome. People look good, man.
So, no fashion police on the J.
No. Or more, I can't tell. But I bring this up because Uncut Gems, we saw it. We both saw it. No spoilers. I know it has a nationwide release on Christmas, and just a a Coastal Elite release this week, but
You'll love to see it.
but the styling, man, Mr. Mort, our boy Mr. Mort, crushed it. I thought everyone looked amazing.
He did a great job, as did I'm spacing her name. Miyako, I think her name is. I'm getting it wrong, but she's also one of the stylists on that film. But they did a great job. The outfits are fantastic and really add to the aesthetic of the movie in a fun way.
Yeah, it kind of it's a harrowing movie, and the styling seems authentic, whatever that means. It seems real, like these characters will actually wear them. But there's a levity to it where it's like slightly funny, where Adam Sandler is coming from another incident and he's wearing like a very loose-fitting satin pink shirt with a huge collar.
And also the styling was done by some of the same people in their prior film, Good Time, and that was reflected in
That was
Outer
awesome.
Borough, like Echo Unlimited jackets and stuff like that.
Like the FUBU sweatshirts that you don't buy. Like the clearance FUBU. Amazing.
For us, or was it not for us, but by us? I'm not sure exactly how the acronym would be adapted in that situation.
But what'd you think of that movie, man?
Well, again, no spoilers. We would not do that to people.
Never.
I really enjoyed how much of a basketball film it is. And they handle basketball in a way that reflects, from the makers, the Safdie brothers, a deep love of the sport versus it being a cheap vehicle to move a plot along.
A prop.
Exactly. And you can tell these are basketball guys, and their understanding of the game and their interest in it it's never shortchanged. You never, and in general, that is my feeling about the film, is that they know basketball, they know New York City, and they never feel the need to beat you in the head in terms of like, oh, we're proving something by like making it accessible or scoring cheap points. It just seems like, yeah, this is about basketball, and we're going to trust our audience to understand it. And this is New York City. We don't have to show you that we know downtown or that it's cool or this kind of thing. We're just going to be like, all right, yeah, they're at One Oak, and we're not gonna go over the top with it. It's like, if you know it, you know it.
I agree. It was kind of a cultural flavor to the movie, and it wasn't splainy about it. It didn't explain the nuances of the tension in a basketball game or a basketball player who has to rush to an important game. KG. It kind of explored the plot line with basketball in the same breath, which was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm sort of getting at, in that it didn't feel like they had to explain what they were doing, and they trusted the audience to understand it or not, and ultimately that it wouldn't really matter. You could enjoy the movie if you were into basketball or not, or if you knew New York City or not. It was okay.
Yeah, it was as well as Good Time, it was kind of a divergent way to tell a story. So if you have like a movie about Miles Davis or a jazz musician or a drummer, they usually spend time to contextualize like where this drummer's coming from, who are the greats, who did he learn from. We got none of that with Good Time or Uncut Gems. It just went into the plot, and no spoilers, but like I wish I knew Judaism better than I do, because I thought it was like a surprisingly and wonderfully like very complicated movie. I expected something harrowing, which it was, but it really cut into like a larger arc of a story that I very much want to do more research about. And Good Time was great because I thought it was about good and evil and good and bad, and the way people kind of live their lives according to these rules. And Uncut Gems was a deeper exploration of that through the lens of Judaism, and it's mentioned quite a bit, and a lot of the imagery suggests that as well. And I thought it was a surprisingly heavy movie, and it made me think about like, What is a good person? Do people change? What is a bad action? What is justice? What's this idea of a Western? I thought it was awesome.
I think what I really enjoyed about it was some of the things you just talked about, and I'm trying to be delicate about who are the good guys. And I thought that was that ambiguity made the movie interesting and changed how rewarding it was. It was difficult to walk away with it in certain ways because of the things you were discussing. Like who's good, who's bad, who are we rooting for here? And then having basketball tied into that, which is of course a great source of ethical discussions, was really fun too. I don't know. It was things that I'm interested in, and I think that you're interested in this morality play. But it was also about the underbelly of New York City and the Diamond District and basketball. It's pretty much catnip for someone like us.
Oh man, yeah. There's no way I would not enjoy that movie. But they're also turning out to be masters of what they do. And with no spoilers, what I thought about a lot during the movie is where we were at in the movie. Obviously, we're in New York City and all the places you mentioned, but where were we really? And the whole movie kind of takes a rounder shape as soon as I decided, like 15 minutes into it. I'm like, oh, we're not in New York City. We're somewhere else. And I thought it was really interesting. And the first scene kind of tells you right away when they dig deep into the earth where they are. I thought it was awesome.
One thing that was cool was that the timing of the movie was, I want to say 2012.
Yeah.
It was 2012 or 2014. I think it was 2012.
It's 12, I think, when House of Balloons came out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was such a nondescript time when you think about it amorphously, but when they put the film there and make it of that moment, it's kind of awesome. Oh, you go in the club and you're hearing Meek Mill and Waka Flocka Flame. Like, oh, right, 2012.
And
yes,
Trinidad James was in there, right? Am I making that up?
No, I think he was.
But, it was a really subtle timepiece. What's the word I'm looking for?
Time capsule?
Right. A period piece. But it was in the immediate past. And there are certain things that kind of signaled it. It was a nice, like, with every movie that I like, I always say this, but it was a nice, like, love letter to the people who actually really care about this thing, whether it be basketball or like New York City or streetwear. It was like, oh, this was 2012 for sure, man.
I also would say that's what resonates with us, is that the movie was made by someone who cares about the same things that we care about and didn't feel the need to sugarcoat them or represent them in ways that made them more palatable or easy to digest for a mass audience. It's New York City, it's basketball, it's nightlife, it's 2012 in New York City. Like, Here it is, here's the story, and at no point did I feel as if I was being spoken down to.
Right. And to give them more basketball context to this, they did the Lenny Cook documentary about that New York City baller who was supposed to be what LeBron James was. And they found a lot of old footage of him and found him a few years ago and talked through him about like his disappointments in his career. And that was a pretty cool thing to see, because I remember hearing about Lenny Cook back in the day, and it was nice to see him resurface and touch base with these superstars now, and they all know who he is. Like, is that Lenny? It's like, it's me, baby. Like, it was really sweet, but melancholy. And then for Uncut Gems, is the New Yorker Califasene wrote a piece about the movie this week. They were looking for Joel Embiid and also Amari Stoudemire to play the KG role, and Embiid was playing, and that would have been a different movie. And Amari wasn't willing to cut his dreadlocks off, but that would have been interesting because Amari is a very public. He switched to Judaism later in life and is a proud member of that community. So I thought that would have been interesting. But KG crushed it. Optically, KG's just like the coolest looking dude, so it worked out.
Also, just for full disclosure here, shout out to Alara Pitchers, who was in the Cookies Hoops Classic Tournament
Oh yeah, shout out to those guys who are
last
balled
month.
out.
I mean, Josh Safdie was in the Cookies Hoops Tournament, and so was Sibo, who is one of the producers of the film. So they are
They can ball
family. So you know, we are complimenting the work of people that we are cool with as well. Just to keep it 100, as Cookies Hoops always does.
You want to pick up those names you just dropped, man.
I'm just saying, I don't want anyone to say, well, oh, you guys are complimenting Uncut Gems, but those are people that you know. Yes, this is true. This is true. They're part of the inaugural Cookies Hoops Classic. It's true.
Josh and Benny have been around forever, and they're awesome Knicks fans, and they're one of our favorite peoples.
One last point about the movie that I did like was that their use of violence was judicious. And again, I'm not going to give anything away about the events that transpire, but it was very unique in comparison to, say, like a John Wick vehicle, which are, okay, we're going to drop hundreds of bodies, there's a gunfight every 2 minutes, and that becoming this sort of cartoonish violence that separates the gravity of death or destruction or maiming from the Hollywood experience. And I thought that Uncut Gems brought that home in a way where, like, getting punched means something, and it's a violation of your space, and it fucking hurts, and you think about it, and they did a good job, to me, really narrowing down the scope of violence and making it feel significant. I thought that was like a job well done.
Yeah, I think when you say that, I think of, like, when we say this movie was harrowing, it was right off the jump. It was very tense, and I think visually and in a song and whatever, like, you need a lot of tension for it to be memorable. And where John Wick 7 kind of loses me is, like, there's no more tension anymore. It's just like everyone gets mowed down, which is its own joy for sure. But this movie was doing something else. This movie was kind of a high wire act, and I had nightmares about it. I couldn't sleep last night because for some reason, like, this imagery kept on popping into my head as I was trying to fall asleep, and it was just like dark, and no spoilers, but I love the movie so much, and it just made me feel terrible. I just didn't feel good.
But you know, when you're watching John McClane and Die Hard, and they're just absorbing punches and blows and getting thrown across the room and crawling over glass, that's superhero shit. That's not what life is like. And a punch to the face is something that you think about for a few days. You wake up the next day and it hurts. And that is so unpart of the Hollywood presentation of violence that I don't know. That was something that really stuck with me. Yeah. Because, newsflash, getting punched in the face really sucks.
Well,
it really sucks.
I always think that a lot of movies in Hollywood, action movies in Hollywood or thrillers, really lean on the idea that you can get knocked out, miss a period of time, and then wake up and run around and do whatever you want. I'm like, no, you probably die of, like, a brain hemorrhage, you know? And
that is an incredible Hollywood plot device, that you can just hit someone over the head with kind of an object, and then they're knocked unconscious, and then you go and do what you do.
Yeah. I mean, Pineapple Express kind of pokes fun at that a little bit. Like, everyone gets knocked out, and as soon as they wake up, they see, like, a bevy of guns at their disposal, which is a great movie too. But
if you just, like, hit someone upside the head with an iron, the odds of them just cleanly being unconscious so that you can go about getting some codes off of them or something. It's like, no, you'd probably actually have to hit them in the head like 20 times, and then they die.
What if Uncut Gems took place during SantaCon?
That would be quite a thing.
Would it just be annoying, though? Because isn't everyone just the worst during SantaCon? The people who do it and the people who complain about it. It's just like, there's nothing nice about that whole day.
I think SantaCon needs no introduction, but just in case, it is a dubious holiday once a year.
It's just a holiday.
When thousands and thousands of people dress up in Santa Claus outfits and run around throughout New York City in a drunken stupor between boroughs or at meeting places. I don't even exactly know where they initially congregate and then how it disperses.
I think they announce on their community website that they would meet in Times Square, and then they all pick a neighborhood to go to. And I believe this year, if I'm not mistaken, was the East Village.
They seem to end up in the East Village every year, just by the sake of
well, the Lower East Side stopped serving them.
But I do know that they end up there because I had a birthday party a few years ago that happened to fall on the same day as SantaCon, and there were Santas out.
I remember this. Yeah, but they don't last long. They flame out at like 4 p.m.
Right, because they're drinking from 10 in the morning. They're wildly intoxicated. They are fighting each other by like 3 p.m.
So many dollar slices consumed, man. It was like a dollar slice bonanza. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. They taste nice after a few drinks.
But I'm not really into the whole let's get upset about SantaCon. Let's shit on it. Who cares?
Yeah, and what people are really talking about is get out of my neighborhood. Gentrification, all those things that people kind of reside to when they see a bunch of people who look the same, puking on their sidewalk. But I don't know. It's like it started harmlessly enough, I guess. Like flash mob stuff seems very entrenched in the 90s. I just think of like Apple and those Spike Jonze ads when I think of flash mobs. But or Spike Jonze Fatboy Slim videos. But it's hard for me to get mad at everybody, so instead I just get mad at no one, which might be the problem I have in general. But I'm like, if you're not yelling at somebody, it's fine. Dress up as Santa Claus and hang out with your friends. If you're a jerk, just stop being a jerk. Like, being in SantaCon doesn't make you a jerk.
There's too many people to say that every person participating in SantaCon sucks. I do think as a practice it sucks, and it irritates people because there is this element of kind of like white privilege that's associated with it, where it's like, oh, all these guys who are from Long Island and from Jersey or yuppies or whoever they are drawing from are rampaging around the streets in costumes as adults and acting like children and vomiting on people and peeing everywhere and fighting.
As an excuse to drink alcohol.
Also, that they are anonymous, that they feel that they can act like complete destructive clowns because they're wearing beards over their face. So it's like it's a bunch of drunk vigilantes, more or less, flooding into a neighborhood that they're not from and fucking it up. Yeah. And I understand why that irritates people. I also kind of am with you in that it's one day a year. Just kind of get out of their way and avoid the Santas and they'll be gone. It's a Saturday. Like, who you expecting to have a classy Saturday in the East Village anyway?
Man, it broke my heart this Saturday when I saw like a gaggle of 5 SantaCon dudes, and they were clearly, I'm not trying to be a SantaCon like a bully here, but they were clearly not the cool SantaCon guys, and they were just kind of moping around. They didn't seem particularly drunk, and they were like scratching their heads being like, well, should we eat something? And I was like, I love you guys, man. Like, fuck. This is fine. Everything's fine. Like, they didn't get to the good SantaCon bar, like it didn't work out for them, but they were in full costume. I'm like, whatever, I'm fine. I mean, a band I love, Pavement, had a hit song, Cut Your Hair, they were all dressed up as Santa, like shooting arrows, like, I don't know. What are we really mad at? I
absolutely am against SantaCon in general, but I don't care enough to say, let's have a civic crackdown on people gathering and having alcohol and acting a fool. Like, that's, to me, kind of acceptable behavior. Yeah. Are we going to say, oh, well, SantaCon is banned, but you can have St. Patrick's Day? It's the same shit.
Same shit.
It's literally just St. Patrick's Day. with Santa outfits instead of people pretending to be Irish and appreciative of bagpipes.
What if in the HBO series The Watchmen, instead of those weird TikTok guys in masks who are white supremacists, who are different than SantaCon completely, but what if it was lighter, and instead of being like horrible racist people, what if they were just jolly Merry Christmas drinkers?
So the bad guys are the Santas?
Yes. Well, like the subculture that kind of lurks underneath the surface of that whole series is SantaCon. What if SantaCon actually was terrifying is my proposition. What if it was like the Skulls, but instead of secret society of rich guys in Ivy League universities, it was East Village.
Are they not one and the
carolers?
same? Is there really a differentiation between white supremacists, the war on Christmas, Santas?
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something.
I don't know. I was just throwing that out there.
Look, where does Bill O'Reilly fall in all of these?
He probably enjoys SantaCon.
Probably loves it.
Well, he enjoys everything that a fan of Uncut Gems would hate, right? So he doesn't really have an opinion. He's just doing his thing.
I think Bill O'Reilly would love SantaCon. I think he would love being a rebel against the war on Christmas. And I think he would be a staunch defender of the bad guys in Watchmen.
We can finally say Happy SantaCon once again. Happy SantaCon, Ben.
Yeah, seriously, man. Obama tried to take away SantaCon. That was crazy.
Do we want to talk about the Watchmen, or should we go straight into hoops?
I don't know. Up to you. I enjoyed Watchmen as someone who does not like science fiction particularly.
Oh, come on. This is my favorite.
I know this. And someone who does not know anything about the comic book world or follow the monster shows like the Avengers. I don't, and the
nerds would get really upset at that comparison. But
the Justice Leaguers, whatever. I don't follow that stuff. I did think that Watchmen was smart. I thought it took advantage of having 10 hours or whatever it was to tell a story, and it never felt as if it was being distended for the sake of more episodes and for lasting longer. I thought it used the time allotted, the time that the audience has to commit, in a way that rewarded that much commitment, if that makes sense. I thought it was really good. I thought it dealt with racial violence in America in a particularly harsh and meaningful way, and that here are cops. They are mostly bad. Here, they did not really pull punches.
Well, children's stories like comic books are always like, they have to be like didactic. Bad has to be bad and good has to be good. And sometimes characters change, but it has to be plain in order for it to work. And right, like all the cops were bad in this, except one who turned into a righteous vigilante. But I was a super fan of this comic when I was a kid. I loved it. So I was really excited when the movie came out, and I like Zack Snyder, so I thought it was a good enough movie. And I thought this series was really good, and I was happy with their extrapolation of this story from that universe. Because this didn't exist in the comics. This was like written just for this. But I thought this whole thing, with all the things that you're talking about, was about a marriage. And I thought it was a really cool thing. It was about a relationship between two people. And I had just watched The Marriage Story, and that's another conversation. But the 8 hours of The Watchmen, with all these things happening and all these like religious overtones and societal breakdowns, I'm like, oh, this is about two people and how they talk to each other. I thought it was really cool.
I enjoyed the element of surrealism and magic realism, where Vietnam could be the 51st state and Robert Redford could be the president. That they just were, and this was the world we lived in. It was normal, except there was this incredible attack on New York City that killed millions of people. and everything else was normal. And I did appreciate that because those sort of creative licenses are fun.
What, Attack on
and
New York?
interesting. I mean, you hate to see it.
Yeah,
But
no.
you know, that's the kind of magical realism and sci-fi stuff that I can get down with, where it's saying here's a variable that shifts this to a different reality, a different, you know, universe than the one we live in. But a lot of things are still the same. We just deal with that, and that's kind of how we live, right? You know, like we are here dealing with Trump during an impeachment proceedings, largely because he was mad Obama made fun of him at like the press correspondence dinner and decided to like run for president. Maybe not, but that little things change the course of history. It's a butterfly effect. And like, is Vietnam being the 51st state particularly insane considering Hawaii is a state? Well, of course not. So let's tell a story where that exists, and that's interesting and acceptable to me.
Yeah, I think the successful use of like magical realism, I always think of like the Simpsons episode, the butterfly effect episode, and everything is the same. In the last episode, it starts raining donuts, and Marge is like, "It's raining again." You know, it's that kind of surrealism within doses that makes it work. And yeah, the Watchmen worked, and then you accept this ridiculous theoretical character of like Dr. Manhattan, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, that was really more of the magical realism. I guess what I'm saying is I could deal with that. Maybe I enjoy the non-magical realism changes, like Vietnam being a state or Robert Redford being a president. But the whole science fiction element of the attack on New York City and then how people dealt with it, having post-traumatic stress disorders and it haunting their dreams and having support groups. I'm like, that's really cool because that's what happened after 9/11.
Yeah.
And that's the obvious parallel here.
And it was a simple story, you know, like all these superhero stories, however self-conscious they are and however self-aware they are, they have to operate within the parameters of this kind of storytelling. And, you know, when Martin Scorsese comes out and says superhero movies aren't real, we clown him, you know, okay, boomer stuff, but like, we kind of also know what he means. This kind of storytelling has to deal with tropes, and the tropes have to align for this story to trigger or execute itself or play out. And that's what he's talking about. It's like it's a different way of telling a story, and he doesn't believe it's cinematic.
Without rehashing Scorsese's points, and I understand people being like, okay, boomer, but he's right. In that those kind of movies have become the general cinema that we find in theaters everywhere. They're the ones that are promoted. They're the ones with huge budgets. To me, that was the fairest critique, to say that it's a chicken and the egg thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But, and I forget if he said this or someone else said it, but, you know, the odds of movies that are being made about superheroes being driven out of Hollywood, being driven out of, you know, multiplexes and no one making them, there's zero chance of that. But movies like The Irishman or prestige films or
The Marriage
smarter
Story.
ones, there is certainly a chance of those not being made and not put in theaters. So like, I think it was Papademos who wrote an essay about sort of like the nerds won. Like they can stop pretending to be the victims here. The nerds are not the victims of Martin Scorsese.
Right.
You know, like they won.
Yeah.
And they should be, well, because nerds are never good winners, but they should be better winners is what they're saying.
Or like, yeah, I know what you're getting at with the framing of being marginalized, but actually being in the majority. And I was thinking about this in terms of SantaCon and online. When I look at my feed, I know it's catered to me. It's like hate, essays, you know, media sources talking about how this is the worst thing. And then I look out my window, I'm like, I see thousands of people enjoying themselves. And then Brexit happens, being like, yeah, Boris Johnson's a buffoon, etc. And he just wins by a landslide. I'm like, oh, there's a disconnect, and everyone wants to be the marginalized group, but someone is in the majority, but both are marginalized, which is interesting.
Well, we talked about this with Barstool, I think last week, when we were saying Barstool revels in being the underdog and the marginalized victim, but they are totally dovetailing in terms of their opinion with like the president of the United States and the Supreme Court and much of Congress and most governors and generally the government of the United States.
But then they look at their TV and see our buddies like Pablo Torre and Mina Kimes and Jacoby, and they're like, these are not our people. Like, can we have a voice? I'm like, oh, I hear that too, because there's a shift in what we see visually, but it's just like a company with a new kind of direction.
Yeah, I totally agree. And look, I think I've said this on Cookies before, maybe not, but I've said it before, probably to you, is that I do think Revenge of the Nerds was the most dangerous and destructive pop culture moment or triumph in the last several decades. Because it presented the guys who were not good at sports, the guys who could not get girls, the guys who could not socially function as being virtuous victims. And that idea seems to have informed the entire tech sphere that we talk about now, where we viewed the nerds who came up with computers and the internet and Amazon and all these different places as good guys. And they viewed themselves as good guys. The incels think of themselves as good guys. Everyone thinks of themselves as good guys.
Yeah, that's
but
the thing,
in general, nerds were supposed to have been kept in their basement, loathing themselves, and understanding that they were bad. And that it was okay to be an introvert. But they were bad. They were thrust out of mainstream society, cast into the basements with their computers for a reason. They were down there because they were not socially acceptable. They were outcasts. To take those same outcasts and say, you are the good guys, you run the show now, that is a dangerous precedent, Andrew Kuo.
I disagree with that, and we don't have to get too much
We're
in it.
We are seeing the ramifications of letting nerds believe they are the good guys and then control the planet. It is absolutely a disaster.
So you're saying the quarterbacks, the skulls, the inner circle who own the Fortune 500 companies are not at fault?
Oh, no, they're totally evil, too.
I think the world is evil because human nature reaps rewards from opportunity, and it's not easy to say no to an opportunity. And this is what Good Time and Uncut Gems is about, right? Like, what is our nature? Are we good people when we start, or are we bad people when we start? And then everything we do is just what we do.
Why are the nerds so cruel when they get in charge?
They
have their weird Batman car. Can't they just be benevolent? No. They want to hoard money. They want to hoard data. It's the gamer side of them that is really destroying us all.
I disagree with that, but we don't gotta talk about that too much. And it's, I think it's not. I don't think capitalism works, but I think.
Thank you. At long last, you've come around to a more enlightened way of viewing things. Agrarian society, baby.
But I think it's close to something that we can all agree on. I don't think the nerd should be faulted for whatever you're angry at. I also don't think, the nerds necessarily are the sum of all the good things you think a person should be.
You're not seeing this, Kuo.
But like
the movie The Revenge of the Nerds predicted everything that has happened.
You're blaming Fizdale and not talking about Dolan. You are. You're doing it.
What I'm saying is, everything that's happening right now is the revenge of the nerds. They are getting their revenge on the world.
No, that's not true. That's too much hyperbole. I mean, Donald Trump is president.
Yeah, but who put him there? The fucking nerds.
That's not true.
The nerds put him in charge.
That's just not. Cookies does not stand behind that statement.
Oh, do you think Russian trolls are cool? They're nerds. They're gamers. Like Guccifer. The hackers. It was the freaking hackers. It's the nerds. It's 4chan. Come on, man. The nerds did this to us.
Wow. Davies Bertans has logged on.
Notorious cool guy. Davies Bertans.
that Latvian guy. But yeah, I don't agree with that. But we don't have to.
That's because you're a brazen nerd apologist.
Hey, man.
Get yourself some contact lenses. You know,
right?
Bulk up.
I'm gonna get yoked, get myself some contacts, and exit scene from nerdom.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Where's my Santa Claus costume? The only Asian Santa on the block.
I don't even know if you're allowed to.
No, I would not be allowed into that party. But if I'm dressed up, maybe it's the only time I'm allowed in.
Well, I'm a little dubious that we're going to allow a nerd to talk about sports, but here we are. Gonna give you a chance. All right, you got some metrics for me? Talking about some PIPMs, RPMs, BPMs.
Someone told me Derrick Rose could shoot threes, and my knuckles got white. I was like, just don't type anything, man. Just leave it alone.
Okay. All right, so let's get into some basketball here.
Right.
The Knicks are back.
Back, baby. Yep, they huge victory over the up-and-coming, run-and-gunning Atlanta Hawks, featuring Jabari Parker and crying Trae Young.
The Knicks are streaking following the firing of Fizdale. The ultimate takeaway here is that Fizz was holding back this team from the 8th seed greatness that they were destined to have. Right now, I'm staring at Randall's.
Elfrid Payton, finally.
Beast.
Mike Miller figured it out. The point guard rotation is done. Next. The Knicks just played a bunch of horrible teams and won some coin flips. This doesn't mean anything. They're still the same ass team, and they should sell all the players.
I'm sorry, they're 7-21.
They're terrible. They won a coin flip on the road versus another bad team, the Warriors, and they blew out the Hawks because they shot good, but the Hawks are one of the worst teams I've seen in recent memory. But they're not in relegation because they still have a plan. The Knicks have no plan.
The Knicks do not have a plan.
No.
But is there any difference in their strategy that you have seen? I have not watched the Mike Miller Knicks because I am devastated to learn that it's not that Mike Miller. And I'm protesting by not watching the Knicks, because if it was the other Mike Miller, I'd be interested. But this Mike Miller, what has he done differently in terms of strategy, if anything?
Aside from not looking like a garbage pail kid, I think I believe in, I'm not going to go into stats because that's what you normies want me to do. The pace seems lively. The point guard play is nice. Randall isn't holding the ball as much. Less isolation. Nice stuff. I like to see it. Mitchell Robinson is getting some run. He looks comfortable. I don't think we can avoid talking about vibes at all. I think vibes plays a role in everything. I think these guys, every time you have something new, you have a new approach to it. But there's a progression to the mean always, and I know that's kind of a dubious idea, but this team is still not good, and they played a lot of terrible teams, and last night was an example of that.
What the Chads like myself want to know, do the Knicks want it more under Mike Miller, who doesn't even have a tribal tattoo, doesn't have a spider web on his elbow, has no odd tribal North Dakota tramp stamps, and yet he's an NBA coach?
How does that happen? How do
they want it more?
It is Revenge of the Nerds after all.
That's what I'm saying.
What was your question? I got lost when you said tribal tramp stamp.
I think I was asking if they wanted it more.
Oh, for sure they do. Come on. Look at the win-loss record, man. It speaks for itself.
Is there anything interesting to take away from the Knicks' recent success, or should we just move along?
I think the interesting thing is, if you are an upset Knicks fan, which I think every Knicks fan has a right to be, there's a bona fide star in Mitchell Robinson. And we say this every week, but he is a star player, and he is as good as you think. He's a disruptor. He's not going to score you a ton of points, but he is a keeper, and the Knicks haven't had a player like him in decades, so we should enjoy this.
He's played fantastically under the helm of the other Mike Miller.
That's
really,
right.
He's been quite good, and so has Randall.
Yeah, I think ball movement helps. I think just like working out the kinks help. I think playing bad teams surely helps. But Robinson is for real. Like he can dart through passing lanes. He's fast. He can finish. He's awesome.
My critique of Fizdale for both years of his tenure as Knicks coach was that I didn't see visual evidence that there was a coherent plan offensively. And that was troubling when a team sucks. Because in my opinion, it's easy to institute a system when you're not worried about winning and losing. So when the Hawks are playing smart but losing, I at least can see, as you described, an idea, a point of view. And with the Knicks, I never saw that. I witnessed a team that never passed the ball, that played ISO basketball, that took bad shots. And if you can change those dynamics, as perhaps Mike Miller is doing, I could not say, but maybe, then you should have more success, especially if you're not dealing with just young guys. So I don't think Fizz did a good job with the Knicks. I don't know if it mattered if he was fired or not. I don't know that winning games right now means anything. But I will say, them going on a little winning streak right now and then sinking back to the bottom of the standings is okay. They reached that critical mass where something had to happen. And you see it occur all the time. People don't care if the Knicks win. Just something had to change. Someone had to fall on their sword, and it was Fizdale. They won a couple games. The people are validated. Their cries for Fizdale's firing have been answered, and the team responded with a couple meaningless wins. Everyone can now check out on the Knicks.
Right.
They know they're going to suck. They're going to lose the rest of the season. They're going to be bad. They're not going to make the playoffs. But we are now allowed to stop paying attention because our calls for vengeance were heeded.
Well, in the last 6 games, they're 3-3. They have it's bunched up, but they have a number 12 offensive rating in the league. They have a negative net rating. They're not good defensively still, obviously, but they feasted on some bad teams, and teams should do that. It doesn't seem like a team that's in relegation, but it is. Like, you think you're seeing 1,000 Santas, but you're seeing no Santas.
But here's how it goes, right? You can win a couple games. You have a few competitive ones. You got to get like a nice signature victory. And I think that was earlier, beating the Mavs.
Mm-hmm. That was nice.
That was a nice win. Mm-hmm. I think overall, they need maybe one more, and people feel good about that. And then the trade deadline hits and you just dump everybody, and people will totally log off. And then at that point, they're looking at Tankathon. Ooh, we're in line for this. Who are the college prospects? All this move did was successfully get them from early season hysteria to the deadline dump to then, who are we going to get next year with our pick? Let's start getting into the Kuo big board. That's now our focus. That was all this did. It just moved along and got us smoothly to the next part of a lost season.
Says somebody who doesn't care about the Knicks. You're not even wearing white face paint. Curtains drawn, staring at Randall's, dude. I care so much. Every game is my Super Bowl, and I'm watching Tankathon like it was my damn religion, man. And the KBB does not look good right now because players are going down, but my fear is they fall too far out of the top 3. But, okay, in my most positive state of mind, if we have found our coach in Mike Miller without the tribals, fine. He's fine. If people are happy with him and like, finally, we always go for names. This is like a real X's and O's guy. Whatever. Just keep him. If players like him, he seems like a really likable guy. Whatever. Let's keep him. That's a positive. And then let's see what I heard rumors of a first-round pick for Amorai, and that is jaw-dropping. I would do that in a hot second.
I don't know who gives you that because he makes a lot of money.
I know,
So
but
someone would have to have.
it's called Twitter, Ben.
I don't think his value is less than a late first rounder, but I just don't know what team in a position to use him has $16 million to match.
Oh, for sure.
Or whatever he makes. I just don't know how that.
These contracts are bad, man.
That was the problem, was that they didn't get cheap contributors. They overpaid for guys that they're now trying to deal off.
We'll be damned if we get outbid on Bobby Portis. What? No one bid?
I don't know. I'm not a real goth. I listen to like House of Balloons. You know, I'm a fraudulent goth.
Yo, I re-listened to House of Balloons right after I saw Uncut Gems, and sonically it's still awesome. The lyrics are real tough, man.
I don't know anything he said in that. I got to be honest.
Ooh, listen to it again, man. I mean, he's a superstar. Everything worked out for him. His story's awesome. He's got a cool style going right now. Ooh, House of Balloons, to me, in my humble, nerdy opinion, doesn't really sound as awesome as it did when it came out.
Wow.
Take that.
Unbelievable. Take that for data.
Do you want Jrue Holiday on the Sixers? Can we roast your team now? Equal opportunity, man.
So Jrue Holiday is apparently on the trade market. He is a quasi-star point guard on the New Orleans Pelicans, a team that is very close to relegation. And as such, would be someone who could probably bring back a nice little haul for them.
You get sorry to interrupt, man. You get relegation wrong, dude. They have a plan. The Knicks are the only relegated team.
Do they have a plan?
Well, having a bunch of young players.
What is their plan? Tell me, because I want to know. I want to know what the Pelicans' plan is.
Just surrounding Zion Williamson with space and young players is more of a plan than what the Knicks are doing.
But is that their plan?
Of course, they're trading off Jrue Holiday. Well, we'll see what they get back, but I'm imagining they get back space and picks.
But they signed JJ Redick, and they traded for Derek Favors. Those guys are not young.
Yeah, but that was before Zion went down. Things change, baby. I've said baby twice. That's one time too many, man. You said it once, so.
I said it once, definitely.
So shout out to that baby.
But in retrospect, I think we can look at the Pelicans as a team that maybe didn't have a plan.
No, that was a fine plan.
Maybe, but it also did seem to be splitting the difference. And I'm not saying it was not a plan, but it did seem to be a little wishy-washy when we look back at it. They were going to get a bunch of young guys, then they were going to go and sign some veterans to contribute, and they were going to have it both ways. They were going to develop talent while trying to vie for a playoff spot. Because you don't bring in Redick or Favors if you're planning on losing games. It just doesn't make any sense.
They were not planning on losing games. I think they thought, I thought that they had a chance at the 8th seed, but they don't. Zion went down. Everything changed.
Agreed. The best laid plans. But I'm saying that their plan was not what they're doing right now.
No,
that was kind of my
now.
point.
Yeah, it's different now. But selling off Jrue Holiday is a plan. That tells you what they're doing.
So Jrue Holiday is on the trade market, and without getting into the granular issues with him, he's got, I want to say, 2 more years on his deal. He might have a player option. I can look it up. But he makes quite a bit of money.
Let's get granular. This year, 26. Next year, 26. The year after, 27. And it's a player option. So he's taking
he makes a lot of money, but not an insane amount of money by the standards of the contracts that were signed over the last few years.
But when you look at his stats, sorry, I have his page up. 103 offensive rating, 114 defensive, 0.3 BPM. He might be too expensive. He's changed as a player this year.
He has not been good this season. And I don't know what to attribute that to, whether it's having a lack of talent around him, losing Anthony Davis, and just being elevated into the best player versus a complimentary player to a superstar. That can have a toll. No
Randall. The candle went out, man. Like a smoke drifting out of the window into the night to New York.
So his availability has piqued the interest of Sixers fans, as he was someone who was on Philadelphia to start his career and was traded by Sam Hinkie. And there were a lot of people who disliked that trade and are now fully back on board with the reclamation of Jrue Holiday.
I love how loyal Sixers fans are. Your wish list is like Saric, Covington, JJ Redick, Fultz. It's amazing. You guys are loyal. I love it. Until you hate your best player.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so you don't know anything about basketball other than the team you've been watching. You have no feelings about any players in the NBA unless they've already been on the Sixers.
You know who the Sixers need?
Henry Sims.
Yeah. It was Roten.
Oh, I hear Deadman's available. Like, I know, he was on the Sixers. I get it.
Hear me out, KJ McDaniels.
It is wild. It's just former Sixers.
Yeah, Rashawn Holmes, what happened?
If only Nerlens could come back. That's me talking.
Yeah. Also, Rashawn, baller. But you guys love your own, except your best own.
No, he doesn't want it enough. He's not off the hook.
Well, he's off the hook this month because he's been playing so good.
No, not off the hook. I love when people recap the Sixers games and they're like, who is bad? I'm like, Simmons, 20 points, 7 of 9 from the floor, 6 assists, 6 boards. Simmons was bad. Like,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
They're just looking at one column, man. But you look at Jrue Holiday, and he can't shoot threes either, and he takes volume threes.
In your opinion, let's just kick the ball your direction for a second. If Jrue Holiday is available, should the Sixers try to trade for him? Now, that would require almost certainly giving up
A contract.
one of the two guys that they signed this offseason, which are Tobias Harris or Al Horford, or putting together some package of Josh Richardson, who was on a favorable contract, plus picks and prospects.
Yeah. And this is an exercise because I don't think New Orleans is interested. But let's say I think the Sixers are right to think that Jrue is the type of player that would send them to the finals, but he's not the right one. I think he's the right archetype. He doesn't shoot well enough, in my opinion. But of the two players that the Sixers should look to deal at the deadline or even sooner, I think Tobias Harris is the one. He's got an unfavorable contract. Al Horford, to me, is like borderline basketball genius, something we love to talk about. And even though he's been hurt, he's been metrically the best player on the Sixers this year. And in a 7-game series, he is just so excellent at figuring things out. And Tobias Harris, shout out to him. He's scoring. He's doing all the things he's promised. But he's the one to move.
In terms of value, I don't know how many teams would be willing to pay Al Horford what he's making and give you something good in return.
His value is just for this year on the Sixers. You got to go all in. There's no future for the Sixers. It's now. I think you stick with Horford.
If a team like the Sacramento Kings
Ooh.
wanted to sign Al Horford, and they would be interested in trading for him, you're still not going to get back great stuff from them because they want to contend with him. So it's just a limited appetite for a 33-year-old player, despite the fact that he's very good, in terms of something working out. Like the Pelicans are rebuilding. You don't want Al Horford. If you're contending, you don't want Al Horford because you have to give up good stuff. And the Sixers need good stuff back if they're going to trade him. So if you were going to say, Sacramento Kings, okay, you give a Bogdan to Philly, you give them Bjelica, and then and a Deadman. Well, I just mean, you're trying to sort it out. That's kind of what it would end up being. And does that move really push the needle for Philly? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think there's any takers for Horford, but this is confusing because he's so crucial to what they're doing this season.
I agree. The Sixers need a fantastic backup center, and Horford can play the 4 enough to shift into that role when Embiid is out. And the Simmons-Horford combination is great. It really works. He's taking way more threes while he's on the floor with Simmons than he's with Embiid, which is counterintuitive but occurs and makes sense. So I'm not really into trading Al Horford that much either, which brings us to Tobias Harris. And Philly fans are suddenly enraged and dumbfounded by the suggestion that Harris could be traded. Why are they so excited about Tobias Harris, a guy who has been traded 4 times before the age of 26?
And that doesn't matter because he's still exactly what he is, and he justifies relatively the contract that he got from Philly. But people just love scoring. He's been scoring a ton of points. His true shooting percentage is great. For the season, Tobias Harris is...
It's okay.
565. It's fine.
It's league average.
His box plus minus, I know that's a general stat, but it's 0.9. And when I said Horford is the best player, he's 4.1 on the team. But Tobias Harris is wonderful.
But Harris's offensive value, if we're going to use BPM, is low. He's getting all of that from defense. And I know from watching him, he is a decent defensive player who is part of great defensive units and is being positioned appropriately because they have 2 other guys who are guarding better players than him.
His offensive box plus minus is 0.
That's what I mean. He is not a good offensive player.
Yeah, he gets buckets.
He is useful. He's a bucket maker,
Yeah.
but he's not a crazy volume bucket guy. He's a solid bucket guy. He's not averaging 20 points a game. It's close, I believe. But he's we're not talking about a top 10 scorer in the league. He's a top 25 scorer in the league.
He's 19.7 points a game. That's nice. You need that.
Again, I think he's been good.
Yeah.
And he satisfies a obvious need for Philly, a sort of perimeter-based player who can kind of just get you some buckets and create
release
for
valve.
himself. And he can shoot enough. Look, I'm pleased with what he has done on both sides of the ball. But the idea that he is suddenly an untouchable, great, contributor to this team, if that's the prevailing sentiment, then you should explore what's out there from a trade perspective, because we know who Tobias Harris is.
Yeah.
He is a fairly efficient, moderate to high volume scorer who is a probably suboptimal passer, a decent defender, and a decent rebounder. Really good player, but he's not a superstar. I don't think anyone would call him a star even.
No, and I do appreciate the players who are release valves, and there was a couple games last week where he kind of converted these plays that other players would have run out of talent on at the rim, and I was grateful for Tobias, and he's a good player, and he's the one to trade though. His value is never higher than it has been because he's been scoring a bunch on this run. This is the time to trade him where another team would be like, he might be our cornerstone, but there's not many players. Is Chris Paul available?
Right. Well, that's what it comes down to. Chris Paul is certainly available, but what do you get back for Harris? Because what I was saying before, Harris is 30th in the NBA in scoring. Good scorer, not a great one. He's not that efficient. A guy whose skill is specifically scoring, who is 30th in the league and a league average efficiency, that's not like an untouchable dude. He's a good player. He's kind of DeMar DeRozan.
Man, I know some Sixers fans I was talking to last night were considering Harris as a more sustainable asset moving forward over Horford. No way, dude. His money he's going to make in the next 5 years is 31, 34, 36, 38, 40. You got to move him if you can, right?
I was always in favor of them bringing back Tobias once Jimmy Butler, who was the absolutely perfect person to put with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, was off the table. Because Tobias is young enough and polished enough and gives you points that he can be used in a trade. His value is to the team in the short term, absolutely. But let's be real. This is Tobias Harris. He has been traded 4 times. He is a fairly efficient, fairly high volume scorer who doesn't do that much else. That is a guy who is a very enticing trade piece for a disgruntled star.
Right. When you say traded 4 times, it's no reflection on his play. It's the perception of him that's off. Like, he looks enticing. He's a very tasty piece. Somehow he's not 45 years old. I don't understand that. He's been in the league since, I was in high school. I don't get this. But he's still young.
Yes. I'm not suggesting that the Wizards have any interest in trading Bradley Beal. This is just a purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
But if you were going to put a package together and say, hey, we'll give you Tobias Harris, Thibault, Zaire, and a first rounder, that's a nice package. That's nice. It's
I would take that.
But that's what I mean. It's nicer than like, all right, we're going to give you a couple picks and some expiring contracts. It's like, no, we're going to give you a real piece. Tobias Harris, he's a piece. He's a borderline all-star. He'll give you buckets. You know, people will respect him. People will like him. But there's also assets attached. You can trade him with some pieces and bring back a legit superstar.
Yeah, this trade market might be a little sheepish this season.
I don't know that that's out there.
Yeah, I don't either.
And I also don't think the Sixers need to be considering overhauls at this point.
Yeah, I want Tyus Jones or Shabazz Napier, something like that.
Look, Philly's good. Before they ran out of gas against the Brooklyn Nets a few games ago, they had won something like 11 of 13 or 12 of 14. Their net rating was top 5. Yeah. Their defensive rating was like first or second. Their offense was top 10. They're a good team. Yeah. And they're still figuring out the kinks on offense because it's a team with 4 big men and 1 small forward. It's going to be weird. It's going to be clunky.
Yeah.
Look, let me make one gripe, though.
No.
My only gripe about Tobias Harris and Jay Rich, and this is why the Sixers don't take enough threes and why the offense looks clunky, is that those dudes are just slightly off. There's something about both of them in their sense of timing and the way they see the floor. It's like watching a movie and the audio is just a hair off. Sometimes you don't notice it, but then once it's there, every time there's dialogue, the mouth is moving slightly different from the voice. And I feel that way when I watch both of them play. They are good players, but there's this slight hitch that keeps them from being great. And with Harris, it's like he doesn't see the floor well, and he's not a great athlete. So he's almost there to get like a steal or get a rebound or a loose ball or find someone open or to pull a 3, but he just misses it because he's not this springy, twitchy dude, and he's not someone who really has an intuitive basketball IQ. Really good player, but his job is kind of getting the ball, spacing out. When I say spacing out, I don't mean like spreading the floor. I mean like kind of just spacing out and like taking a tunnel vision drive to the basket. When you see him get a rebound or someone gives him the ball in the rebound, he just dribbles it up the court and goes into a shot. Like he doesn't find teammates ever. And it's not that he's even selfish. I think he just doesn't really register what he can do besides score. And I think Richardson has a little of the same thing. He only passes when he's in the air.
Eye test, boys. The stats, I know that's kind of a way to perceive the game when you see it, but the stats don't prove that. Like, he doesn't turn the ball over much. Richardson's good. It looks bad when, Richardson stumbles, but he's good, man.
Neither of them are high turnover guys, but it's also because neither of them are really assist guys either. And they're both guys who take quite a few mid-range jumpers, which is sort of kryptonite to avoid turnovers. And there is something to be said for that.
Yeah. But
there is, to get a shot off, even if it's not a great shot, versus turning the ball over more, there is value there. There is math that works.
Yeah. Just to be that annoying guy. Like, Joel Embiid looks off too, but he's awesome. He always looks slightly off kilter to me.
This is my thing, man. Al Horford and Ben Simmons are really smart, really skilled guys.
They're crisp players, yeah.
They're crisp fucking players.
Yeah.
The problem is that one of them can't shoot, and one of them is old and slow,
yeah.
and also is a big man. The Sixers' 2 outlier brainiacs who can see the floor and pass and find things and who really understand the game are both bigs. And then you've got their guards or their perimeter players are dudes who do not see the floor, and then they funnel the offense through Embiid, a guy who can't really dribble and has trouble interpreting double teams. It's a weird system to have that the clunkiness to me is not based on the lack of shooting at all. It's based on literally the personnel, that you have 3 guys on the floor who are not good passers. They are not high IQ offensive players. They're good. They can do good things. They can score. They can contribute. But it's like when you put Durant and Steph and Clay on the court together, and you have this exponential amount of shooting, it just turns into a whirlwind. Philly is getting the result of having three guys who touch the ball a lot and score a lot and shoot a lot who are not great passers. And it's turning the Sixers into like a molassesy, gluey-ass offense.
Are you kink shaming?
Absolutely not. I don't do that. But you see how much smoother the Sixers offense is when it's Simmons and Horford and then shooters who just let it fly like Ennis or Mike Scott or Furkan. Like the offense makes sense because everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. There's way too much prodding and holding the ball and taking mid-range shots when you have three starters who want to do those things. You have three dudes who just want to take mid-range jumpers.
Yeah, so if they trade Tobias, they have to get a sharpshooter, a crisp guard who's a sharpshooter in return. And that's a really scarce market. But Chris Paul is exactly that, even at his age and at his price.
He'd be awesome.
He's the archetype that the Sixers would... He's what they need to be really scary. And they are really scary. But, right, like, we knew this going into the season. These large lads... the kink is exactly what you described, but Tobias Harris
man,
has...
It's wild. Everyone yells about Simmons' lack of three-point shooting. The problem with the threes is that the other four dudes who are on the court with him are reluctant to shoot threes and can shoot them.
Yeah.
That's the issue. It's that Tobias and Rich and Horford don't have quick releases. They can't space out a little bit further because they're not real three-point shooters.
They pump fake a lot.
They don't want to shoot that three. They're not hunting it. Tobias doesn't want to take threes. You see it. He doesn't want to take those shots.
Yeah, he pump fakes and goes in.
He'll come off curls and on high screens that are designed for him to take a three. He'll do his little shrug and he'll just turn it into an ISO, into a mid-range. He doesn't want to take threes.
It's personnel. They should definitely see Jrue Holiday available and think about it. He's not the right one, but, I don't know. Ricky Rubio, Satoransky is a little too expensive now, as you said. There's players out there, but there's no perfect fit. Alfred Payton's not going to work out. Frank Ntilikina is bad. Sixers fans should not be pursuing Frank Ntilikina.
I just think their main issue is that they need a backup stretch five. That's like the one thing they really, really, really need.
The Green Cornet.
No, he'd be perfect. They can't have Kyle O'Quinn as someone who could get minutes.
Yo, he's so bad, man. He's exactly what he was on the Knicks.
I like Kyle O'Quinn. I will root for Kyle O'Quinn. I will defend him.
How was he not in Uncut Gems, man? How did the Bar Mitzvah King avoid that casting?
Oh, that's wild.
That's weird.
Fat Jew is in there, but not Kyle O'Quinn?
Yo, get Kyle in there, man. Maybe in the director's cut.
But a stretch five is the Sixers' biggest need because Horford and Embiid have to sit sometimes. And you can't allow, in a meaningful moment, Ben Simmons to be sharing the court with Kyle O'Quinn. It pains me to say this, but we have data. We have numbers. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
The offense cannot score and the defense isn't good. They need a stretch five just to keep the offense humming when Simmons is on the floor and Horford is not, or Embiid is not. It is mandatory. And I will be very concerned about this franchise if they don't remedy that, because it was the problem last year. We saw it happen. They put Simmons with guys like Boban and Greg Monroe and Amir Johnson, and they went out this year and their backups are both big, slow guys. And I'm a little concerned that they did not learn anything.
Oh, man, I want so badly for the Sixers to trade a bunch of contracts like Mike Scott with Zaire Smith for Amorai. That would be my fantasy. Come on.
I don't want Mike Scott to be traded.
No, he's good, but you got to give up something.
Oh, for sure. I just mean his contract is the most movable.
Yeah.
But Mike Scott also is one of the few guys on the team who is just a puller. He gets the ball and it's going up.
Yeah.
He also will swing the ball. He doesn't look to drive. He doesn't get cute. They have way too many dudes who are cute with the basketball. That's the issue. It's a cuteness, adorability issue.
Oh, these lovable large lads. I like that. Triple L.
Jay Rich, Embiid, and Tobias are so cute all the time.
Yeah. I mean, this team is awesome, and that's why. Right. I mean, this is the time. They have to sell out for this year, so that's why there's a frustration, because you can take your time with other teams, but for a handful of teams this year, it's all in.
I'd be fine with the Green Hornet and then packing in a little bit extra to get someone like Chris Dunn, a defensive guy who can dribble and shoot a little bit.
He can dribble a little. He's fine.
Because the other guys we're talking about, like Napier, is he really that better than Raul Neto? They're kind of the same.
Oh, I like Napier. I mean, it's so hard to tell, but
I do too. But an undersized guard who can shoot, who can bring the ball up, like they're fine.
I think he's better than Neto, even eye test wise. But
same, but how much better?
True, but you can get him for nothing. You could probably get him for Neto.
Yeah, probably so.
What about your boy Davis Bertans?
I don't think the Wizards are going to trade him, but
he's so good.
But I'm not sure exactly how these weird Euro contracts work. He only signed a 2-year deal, but I would assume they would have some kind of like restricted free agent rights with him. No,
checking right now. Is he better than Kristaps Porzingis though?
Is he the best Latvian?
Yes, clearly. So Davis Bertans is on the books this season for $7 million, and then that's it.
But that's what I'm saying is that was
that's
his
risky.
first. But that was his first NBA contract. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the team that owns that contract would then have the ability to match contracts that are offered to him as a restricted free agent, or is he just an unrestricted free agent? I don't know.
It looks like unrestricted, but we'll see.
But when second rounders sign, I don't think it's ever like you don't just become a unrestricted free agent, as far as I know. I don't think that's even possible. I could be wrong.
I don't know. As I'm looking it up, I'm like, I don't know. But I don't think the Wizards are going to be sellers. I think they really like their team. I think Rui Hachimura is awesome, and man, they're not as bad as we thought. I think they have a really surprisingly high offensive rating for the season, and Thomas Bryant going down sucks, but I don't know. Don't count them out as like a solid rebuilding team.
I don't think there's a lot of great talent sitting around for any of these contenders to just sort of pluck up at the deadline. I think it's going to be guys who require a real financial commitment. It'll be someone like Chris Paul if you're the Miami Heat and you've got this team that is very good but is not quite a contender, and you're looking at the terrain and you're saying, well, who's out there? We don't have a lot of draft picks. We don't have a ton of talent to give up.
Well, I was looking at Terry Rozier and I was like, I hate myself. That's not going to happen. But you're right. To that point, I was looking at people with big contracts, like perceived stars. Those are the type of players that would probably move to Philly.
Well, even, not even talking about the Sixers specifically, one consequence of having so much accumulation of stars in various markets is that there's less of an ability to sort of pry one away, though they are already somewhere. You know what I mean? Like there are already two on the Lakers. There are already two on the Clippers. There are already a couple on Philly. It really is teams like Miami that need to go and find. Do you want Westbrook? Do you want Chris Paul? Like who are you going to get?
It's true. I mean, this prototype of player is kind of aging out before our eyes. Like aside from Kemba, we don't really see these alpha point guards much anymore.
I mean, I'm not even talking about like alpha players. I'm saying if you look at the teams that are likely to be selling, how many stars are there? Jrue Holiday and Chris Paul are kind of two of the only options on teams that seem unlikely to, be building around that individual.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a surprise. There's always one just based off of history, but I agree. The trade market is not as juicy as it was last year.
like you could probably get Zach LaVine. He might be someone that Chicago is tired of. He doesn't seem to get along with the coach.
Chicago seems to be the team to target. They've soured on Lauri Markkanen a little bit. They've benched him down the stretch of games recently. Satoransky signed a big deal, but he's a really good basketball player. Chris Dunn, they're done with. And Zach LaVine has value. So, like, I don't know. Who knows what the Bulls are doing, man?
Yeah, I mean, those are the teams we're talking about, right? Minnesota, Portland, Phoenix, Charlotte, Detroit. You know, I mean, we'll see. Maybe Blake Griffin ends up in Miami. I don't know. Like, there are certainly options like that. Did they trade for Drummond?
Is Spencer Dinwiddie available, you think?
Maybe.
I think it's worth asking. His contract is so, and he could certainly put a team over the top.
Well, I mean, that's to be discovered in February. We'll see if someone like, D'Angelo Russell is actually on the market or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I all this griping about these good teams feels like I'm catching some of that New England clam chowder.
Oh man,
odor.
The Beantown Mafia struck again.
Yeah, we're arguing about all these great teams like the Sixers, and I'm like, the worms got into my brain again, man.
Even with the Uncut Gems promo tour, when Kevin Garnett is out there chatting with Bill Simmons and etc., you're like, oh, right, here we go. Here comes some Celtics agendas, and lo and behold, LeBron quit. We broke LeBron James. Yeah, broke LeBron James.
Yeah. We ended his desire to play in his hometown.
Like,
is that necessary? Is any of this necessary at this point? I know it drives traffic, but why does it drive
But we know what it is.
I know.
It's that any time a washed-up Celtic says anything, it becomes part of the basketball discourse because of the Beantown Mafia.
Wait, the God Bill Simmons, respect forever, who created this whole thing. Where's he from?
I mean, we know where he's from.
No. Kevin Garnett, man. Even the good ones fall at the hands of this massacre.
But they're all working together because it helps everyone. Because this Celtics team that won one championship has been lionized forever. They won one championship. People act as if the Celtics were a dynasty.
Yeah.
They won one championship.
And shout out to them for winning that championship. I love Poogate. That's my favorite thing. But they were also mercenaries, and they clown people who kind of aren't loyal because they're stuck in that kind of that stick shift is stuck on loyalty and wanting it more. And I'm like, not only did Garnett leave his team as a quitter
after he was broken by Tim Duncan.
Yeah, exactly. Ainge shipped him off and shipped Isaiah Thomas off. No one talks about the Isaiah Thomas situation and how Ainge just dumped him after like his sister died, which is fine. Like, this is a business, but the Boston media, or the way we talk about the Celtics is always like, tradition. If you're good, we're loyal to you. We know how to build a franchise from the bottom up. I'm like, you screwed Isaiah Thomas over, man.
I'm not sure who technically broke Kevin Garnett in Minnesota, because the year that he was traded, they went 32-50. So it's hard to pinpoint the team that broke him. And the year before that, they went 33-49. So hard to argue that someone snapped his soul.
Did he snap his own soul?
The year before that, they went 44-38, which is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Soul intact,
but they didn't make the playoffs. So no one broke their soul there. The year before that, they lost to the Lakers. So 4 years before Garnett left, I think we can say that Shaq broke Kevin Garnett.
Wow.
We figured it out.
Done. And that's what Uncut Gems is about. Garnett's broken soul. Him looking to mysticism in Boston to try to get his broken soul back, clutching that rock.
After Rick Fox seized his soul and delivered a backbreaker to it, which eventually 4 years later drove him out of Minnesota and into the arms of the Beantown mafioso.
Who broke Ray Allen's soul?
Oh yeah. Who broke Ray Allen? Was that Allen Iverson that broke his spirit in the Eastern Conference semifinals, which eventually led to him being traded to the
Allen Iverson is the
Sonics,
soul breaker.
The Sonics, which led to him being traded to Boston.
Weird. It feels like Ray Allen had numerous broken souls.
I just wish that Kevin Garnett had the cojones to finish his career in Boston instead of,
The mean
begging
streets
out and going to Brooklyn and then Minnesota again.
You hate to see it.
Honestly, man, it's like Celtics just say madness
Yeah, and
all the time, and it gets amplified as if it's meaningful and we should care about it.
I mean, as I'm watching the impeachment proceedings this week, it's just like all this feels procedural, and Boston just saying this stuff, ex-Boston players, Boston writers who we love, no disrespect, it's just like this is just a song everyone hums, and after a while the song comes back into the front of your brain and you hum it again. It just sounds good. Like you're never gonna lose on did LeBron James want it enough. Like this is an article you can write every 6 months.
It is wild that the Bulls, Celtics, and Lakers just control the dialogue about the modern NBA as if any of them are particularly relevant in the context that we're giving them. Like Scottie Pippen, I would score 50 these days. No, you wouldn't, Scottie.
No, you would not.
And I'm really wishing that contemporary players would take a little more public affront to this stuff. Like, I want to see Sean Holmes saying, hey, Scottie, I'll dunk on your fucking skull and make you walk back down the court like an accordion. Just like, shut up, Scottie Pippen.
Oh, we never talked about the TNT Joel Embiid thing. Ridiculous. And like, Joe, whatever. I mean, shout out to him. He seems sad about something. Maybe we did talk about this, but.
Well, we talked about him being apparently sad. And then we mentioned his public dressing down, but we didn't really talk about his performance, which was majestic and a victory over the Celtics. Yep. But then that was attributed to the criticism that the Boomers gave him. And we all had to pretend that him being publicly shamed was the reason that he had a huge game against Theus and Cantor.
It's gaslighting. This is politics. Like, if you do what I want you to do, it's because of me. If you don't do what I want you to do, it's because you don't listen. It's ridiculous.
But shout out to Shaq and Charles for living
their best lives.
The Boomers' dream.
Yeah.
Where you get to shit on a young player, then the young player does all the work, and then you get props for your complaining as if you changed the young person. It is like the Boomers' life goal. Oh, I got to talk shit about a millennial, and then he did some work, but I get the praise because of my criticism? Like, just incredible vibes.
It's like crushing a barbecue brisket. You wait years or months or hours for this brisket to cook, and then you put it on, you let it rest for 20 minutes, you cut into it, and mwah, it is fucking perfect.
It's like winning the war on Christmas, and you come downstairs, and under the tree is a John Deere snowblower, and you go outside and you plow just your driveway and no one else's, and everyone comes and says, wow, your driveway looks so good, as their cars are stuck in drifts.
It's like putting on a Santa costume, meeting up with your other homies who are all also in Santa costumes and wearing those tactical sunglasses so you can't miss a single thing.
It's the sweetest propane that your grill has ever tasted.
It's the best season of Ray Donovan you've ever seen. It's just like everything goes down. Ray's a tough guy. His dad is a tough guy. John Voight for life.
It's getting a big bag of self-lighting charcoal and just throwing the briquettes at your neighbor's dog.
It's like ranking. It's like ranking hot sauces and Time after time, sriracha's always number one. You try to throw in another hot sauce.
So this is how Charles and Shaq were living.
Oh, I'm
Truly.
so jealous. That's so awesome.
No one gets to experience that.
Well, even when Embiid like kowtowed to them, their response was kind of annoying, which was like, "Thank you, Joe. This is a very important day for us, and we applaud you for listening to us." I'm like, "Fuck out of here, seriously, man."
And the wildest thing is how many fans dream, they fantasize, they thirst for players being publicly chastised and humiliated and like brought to task in front of an audience. There is an odd subsection of fans who are just so into it. Oh, I love this. This is great. Now do Ben Simmons. Shit on him. Yeah. Shit on him. Make him shoot. Yeah. It's like, yeah, say mean things about Embiid. That'll make him better. Like you just want to see young dudes criticized in public. Oh, Ben Simmons won't take a 3 a game. I say bench him. I say bench him. Yeah. Humiliate him.
And
It's like, what is wrong with you, you fucking fascist?
And let's not forget Shaq and Barkley's criticism during their career, which was exactly this. And even at that time, I'm like, yo, I'm wearing my Reebok pumps. Shout out to my mom who bought me those after like begging her for months. Like I was Shaquille O'Neal. It's like, oh, he's fat and slow and doesn't want it. I'm like, no, he's my favorite. Charles Barkley on the Suns. It's like, he's not a winner. He's just a stat hog. I'm like, I don't know. He's awesome. Like, we gave them a break, right?
I wonder what these two notoriously overweight non-workers have to say about Joel Embiid wanting it. Also, their fucking advice was dominate more.
I know. It was just like, is he aggressive enough? I'm not sure he's aggressive enough.
There's something about his aggressiveness. It needs to be more aggressive. I love how aggressiveness is just shorthand for wanting it more.
Yeah.
But wearing glasses.
Tactical glasses.
Now, some ignorant fools may say that you didn't want it enough, but I, a scholar, can say that you were not aggressive out there. You didn't attack the basket. You didn't dominate.
This flashlight isn't military grade. What am I going to do during the revolution?
I'm sorry, is this chicken even brined?
Oh, I cooked that steak perfectly, man.
But that was the wild thing, man. People were showering Chuck and Shaq with acclaim for saying, Joe, you got to dominate. You got to want it more. Like, they didn't even give him good advice. They didn't even give him shit to work with. They just said, you got to dominate more. Oh, I never thought of being better. You know, all this time when I was playing, I thought my strategy would be to play worse. Turns out playing better is what actually makes the difference in my performance.
Yeah.
Let me get my notepad.
Yeah.
Down. Play better. Thank you, Charles.
Also, circle St. Patrick's Day this year. We're going to go off. But yeah, someone posted on my Twitter feed a question being like, is it possible to want it more and also lose? And I was like,
nope.
Maybe.
The answer is no.
Can you be too aggressive and still lose?
No. I'm sorry. You're leading the league in offensive fouls. I think you should be more aggressive.
Right. Less crying, more winning.
The wild thing is, I've said wild like 5 times because it's just all very wild. Shout out to Maurice Sendak, the god. Does anyone think Joel Embiid's problem is not wanting it enough?
No, he wants it too much, maybe.
Does he want it too much?
I mean, we clowned him for crying, and then we're just like, he doesn't want it enough. He's like, his heart was broken, man.
But for real, when you see him play, it is clear that he wants it too much.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
There are times when he should not be double teaming and leaving his man alone, but he wants to come and help. He's trying to do too much. When he gets the ball and doesn't quickly make a read to find a cutter,
he'll go through
when
defense.
A double team comes, and all of a sudden he turns his back and there's defenders clinging at his arms, hanging off of him like cats from the limbs of a tree. It's not because he doesn't want it. It's because he doesn't want to give up the ball.
Yeah.
He wants to make plays. He wants to dominate. He wants to score. He wants to dribble. He wants to do all these things that aren't necessarily things he can do in every situation. When people are sending 3 men at you, you can't necessarily dominate them. When you're going against a very good top-of-the-line post defender like a Marc Gasol or a Rudy Gobert, you can't just dominate them by spirit, by wanting to dominate them. You can't. It's not how it works. I think Joel Embiid's crime. Wanting it too much.
Yeah,
Want
probably.
it less, Joe.
Yeah.
Want it less.
Yep.
Want less.
I think most players can benefit from wanting it less, practicing less, having more fun, not worrying about accumulating stats like scoring. Man, that's why I love players like Lonzo Ball or even Jason Kidd or Ben Simmons. Man, they pick their spots and they're just so good at it.
Everyone's mad at Simmons. He's not aggressive enough. No, he wants it the right amount.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about scoring points for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
He wants to help his team and make the right plays, even if it makes you, as a viewer, criticize him for not being aggressive enough or not wanting it enough or not wanting to dominate and be a star. No, he's playing basketball.
Yeah.
That's like what this sport is about.
Every
basketball.
Every buckets guy wants to play with Ben Simmons. He's just like, he's a rare player. Whatever. We don't have to get into that, but next in line for these TNT boomers, who's going to be their next TNT challenge? Who are they going to challenge to want it more? It's going to be a thing now. They're so galvanized.
Oh, God. They've been rewarded for their bullshit in a way that they will certainly repeat this process.
Kyrie Irving.
Oh, that guy doesn't want it enough.
It's like, where's he been all season? Maybe he doesn't want. Who won't get criticized? Gordon Hayward.
No, he wants it plenty.
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh, he's gonna not want it enough in a week.
Yeah. I think he's a prime candidate for not wanting it enough.
He has all the talent in the world. How come he can't win? Maybe
they're not good.
Maybe it's his attitude, young man.
Now, if he wanted to win, they would not be on this losing streak.
Right. If he wanted to win, Wiggins wouldn't be a future Knick.
I get it. I understand. It's all about aggressiveness. What else we got? We got anything else? I think that really,
well,
I really think we proved a real point there.
Is over under on Zion. Are we ever going to see Zion at peak Zion level?
Do I think we'll see Zion this year? I will ask that. I will answer that question, and it is no.
50-50.
I don't think so.
But yeah, the rehab is not going well. He missed his timeline, and they admitted that it was kind of a fake timeline anyway. It's a serious injury that players have recovered from, but he's a big boy, and everyone's like biometrics are different. So this is scary.
I'm going to be careful here. I don't have any information. I don't.
Yeah.
This is all speculative.
Well, we know what the team says.
Right. I'm saying we don't really know what the injury is specifically. We don't even know if he's really injured.
This is true.
At this point, we just don't know what it is. So, from being a Philadelphia 76ers fan and deeply acquainted with the red shirt approach to rookie seasons, I don't think there's a chance we see Zion. Because once you hit January, there starts being diminishing returns to getting him back on the court. You're like, well, why? Why are we going to rush him back if he's not perfect? And if he's not perfect, let's be patient. And then you're like, well, you know what? Are we going to bring him back in March so we can play 20 games for what? Yeah. Like, why would you want him to be introduced mid-season instead of hitting the reset button and playing in summer league, playing in preseason, and getting him acclimated to the frothy waters of the NBA in a way that allows for more acclimation versus, okay, you're out there on a shitty team tanking games, and now you're just in the NBA. Now you're just playing out of the blue.
Yeah.
And you're sacrificing your opportunity to win Rookie of the Year for...
Sure.
I just mean, what's the cutoff? Half the season? Okay.
Well,
Bring him back.
according to
30?
Donovan Officer Mitchell, it doesn't matter.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like, what's the cutoff date? If you can play 40 games, sure. Is it 30? Yeah. Is 20 worth it? I don't know.
Like, I don't believe in reps. I don't believe in like in-game fine-tuning or getting up to the speed of the NBA. But I fall along the lines of like, I just don't want to see these guys get hurt. So I would just sit them out until it mattered. Like, and I suffered for this through the Porzingis thing, being like, if the Knicks don't have a chance, just don't play him. He's gonna get hurt. And with Zion, I feel the same. And I err on the side of course, sitting him out this year, but like even taking your time, like next season, limiting his minutes, no back-to-backs, all that stuff.
Well, I'm just looking at the Pelicans' schedule coming up. So basically, if you wanted to get him half the season, he's got to play by mid-January. If you want him to play half the season. And once you cross that threshold, as I said, diminishing returns. So we're talking about if Zion doesn't come back before January 18th, Clippers Pelicans, then he's not going to even play half the year. And I just don't think you bring back a guy like Zion Williams, who is a huge investment for a franchise, could be a franchise player with any questions about his knee for less than half of a year. I think that would be my drop dead date. If Zion's good to go within 3 weeks, get out here and ball, dude.
Yep.
If he's not, then take him off the table.
I agree with that. And can I propose a weird Watchmen kind of scenario? If
you can.
Let's say his knee issues are biometrically related, and let's say the team asks him to lose 30 pounds, and he does lose 30 pounds this offseason. Is he the same player when he comes back svelte?
I don't know.
Is his value in his large ladness? He's a big boy. I mean, he's a wonderful finisher. He's a fast.
Is his success all based on girth? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's a big deal, right? Because he causes mismatches at the power forward and small forward positions. But as soon as he loses a little bit of that weight, he changes his matchups, and he has to change the way he plays. And we talked about this way back when he was a prospect and when he was getting drafted. We haven't seen him develop a second skill set yet, and that could happen. But this is all happening so fast. We don't even know if he can play yet.
Right. We had discussed specifically this topic, that what is Zion's second skill? Is he an elite defender? Is he a shot blocker? Is he a rebounder? Is he a good passer? Or will he just be a very efficient scorer at the basket? Is that his deal? Which is valuable, but he may not be a superstar without a second attribute. And that's why his injury is such a bummer.
Yeah, it sucks.
Because we wanted him to be able to explore those possibilities. And maybe we would learn that he is a really good passer, that he could be a small ball center, that he could be a monster in transition, whatever. All these other things that we're not sure about, but were compelling ideas.
Still possible.
Look,
but less and less so.
I'm not writing him off in any way.
Nope.
It's more that we don't know who he is, and we're not going to find out for like a year.
If not longer, right? Like,
well, I mean, by this time, hopefully, if he returns next season, is healthy, we'll have 25 games under the belt.
Yeah. Well, and that supports the idea of him coming back even if there's 20 games left. Any data is good data, but right, he's such a vibe that I think that the Pelicans would hold him back. He's such an important part of their franchise that putting him out there to the Wolves is not the right move. But any data is data, and dumb teams do dumb things. So they might just be like, we want to see him play 20 minutes, see what we got.
His bizarreness and uniqueness as a prospect is why it's such a kick in the teeth that we're not able to watch him. Because Simmons missed his first year, but we kind of knew what he was, even though he's also an oddball. Fultz missed it. We knew what he was. Joel Embiid, we had an inkling of what he would be. But Zion is uniquely bizarre.
Yeah.
And we didn't get Zion dunks. Like, what a fucking bummer. We didn't get Zion dunks.
Man, all this like primetime scheduling without Zion, you could see the vision that the NBA had for this season. I believe the Pelicans are coming into Philly this week, and how amazing would it have been to see Zion versus Joe? But when, yeah, it's a bummer, man, and the NBA goes on, but I'm bummed.
Doncic has sidelined for a little while too, which is irritating.
Yeah, I hate that too.
Sprained ankle.
Also playing Philly this week, I guess, but. Yeah, it's Porzingis season. Maybe he can catch up, nip the heels at Davis Bertans.
The war for Latvian supremacy wages on unabated.
Yeah.
This has been an episode of Cookies.
I love cookies.
It's probably the perfect pod. And next week we'll be back with a festive perfect pod.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm promising that.
Cookies.
It will reek of eggnog. Christmas cookies.
Cookies.